Welcome back, students. We will continue with the video lecture of phylum Annelida, and we were discussing about the polychaete worm example, Chaetopterus. We were discussing about this Chaetopterus. So let's continue with the Chaetopterus. It is actually the tube-dwelling forms, and they are called as a patchman tube worm, or they are also called as a paddle worm. They are also called as a paddle worm. P-A-D-D-L-E, paddle worms. They are also called as a paddle worms, and the common name arises from the parchment-like appearance of the tubes the worms live in. So actually these worms, they live in this type of tube, parchment tube, and they are usually the filter feeders, and they spend their adult life in this tube, and unless the tube is damaged or destroyed, and they are the planktonic in the juvenile period, as it's typical for a polychaete Annelida. Then the body is divisible into the three regions. There is an anterior region here, then there is a middle region, and there is a posterior region. And the prostomium, it is a small, and the peristomium, you can see a prostomium, there is a peristomium, this peristomium, and there is a prostomium here. It is a small, and the peristomium is actually the funnel shaped, and the peristomial cirri are the present. These two are the peristomial cirri. Then the anterior region bears 9 pairs of parapodia. These are the 9 pairs of parapodia. And the middle region consists of 5 segments. This is a middle region which consists of 5 segments, and the first, which is produced into a wing-like structure. So the first is produced in a wing-like process directed towards forward. So this is directed towards the forward. And the second segment carries a pair of suckers. Then the parapodia of the surrounding segments are modified into the shape of the fan, and it is used to create the suction and the pump water through the worm patchment living tube. And the worm feeds by using the modified structure on its mid-body segments and secrete the mucus net to trap the food passed through the filter. So the feeding takes place like that, and it is a filter feeder, and the worm feeds by using the modified structures on it, the mid-body segments, and create the mucus nets to trap the food passed through the net. So this is the incurrent part, and this is the outcurrent area. And when the flow of water containing the planktons flows, when the seawater flows above this tube, the organic debris is created by the circular flaps on the 3 segments that secrete the suction to draw the water through the living tube. And the members of this genus have no organs for dictating the light, and they live their entire adult life in this type of buried tubes. In spite of this, some members of this genera exhibit the strong bioluminescence. You can see this picture. This is a bioluminescence exhibited by one of the members of this group. And when the worm is disturbed in the tube, it moves to the end of the tube away from the disturbance, and near the disturbance it emits the mucus with crystals which exhibits like a luminescence. So that is also seen in this organism. Then, so once again we will just go with this diagram. There is an anterior region, middle region, and the posterior region. In the posterior region, you can see the segments are there, and it is on the both sides you can see the parapodia. Then the middle region, the segments are modified into the form of a fan, which reduces the beating or the movement of these fans reduces the temperature inside the U-shaped tunnel. And there is the anterior region. There is a larger great wing like spoon, that is a 12th notopodia. It is a large and is forwardly directed. And there is a ciliated dorsal groove at the center. You can see a ciliated dorsal groove. Then so once again about the class Polychaeta, it is the largest group of animals, primarily marine. Most segments include a pair of paddle-like parapodia and the well-developed head with the eyes and the other sensory secretion. So that's the sum short of the class Polychaeta, and the Chaetopterus is a good example for the class Polychaeta. And this subclass Serentia and the subclass Erentia are also the subclasses of polychaetes, and this includes Sedentaria, includes the fan worms, Christmas tree worms, spaghetti worms, and the Chaetopterus and the lungworms, whereas the subclass Erentia includes the sandworms, the scale worms, the fire worms, and palaloworms. So these are the beautiful pictures of the different representatives of these annelid worms. Next we can pass on to the next third phylum, that is the third class, that is Oligoketa. It is derived from a Greek word. Oligo means few and kete means a hair. They are mostly the terrestrial and some are the freshwater forms. The body with conspicuous external and the internal segmentation. The head indistinct without the sensory organs. You can see the head and the tail region appears to be the same, and we can't see any sensory organs present, and the setae are the few which is embedded inside the skin. And parapodia is absent. There is a granular clitellum present for the cocoon formation, and the pharynx is not visible and without the jaws, and these are hermaphroditic, that is the sex are united. The testis anterior to the ovary, and the development is indirect. Fertilization is external, or the larval stage is there. A good example for this earthworm are Fertima, Postuma, then lumbricoids, then there are the megascolids, and it is a megascolids that you have to study for exams as an example for the Oligoketa. And these Oligoketa, the beautiful representative of this Oligoketa is a earthworm, and there is a structure called as a clitellum which is present in this earthworm. This clitellum, this arises only at the time of the breeding season, and the main functions of the clitellum is the cocoon formation, locomotion, excretion, and copulation. So these are the functions of clitellum. And this metameric body plan of the nearest and other animals, and other errands is a basic condition, and the head prominent crawling parapods, reversible pharynx, some species with poison gland that can also be present in this class Oligoketa. Then these are the few polychaetes. Tombopterus, which shows a bioluminescence. Then there are the burrowing polychaetes like the Peristome head streamlined, parapods, feeders, earthworm like, etc. Then there are the tube-dwelling forms, that is a feather dust, Xmas tree, fan worms, etc. are there, and the most specialized tube dwellers are the Chaetopterus. So you have to study the Chaetopterus as an example. Then the last class, it is a Oligoketa, or the third class is a Oligoketa, and the example it is the megascolids, and the Greek it's derived from a Greek word. Oligos means a few and the kete means a hair. And the body with conspicuous external and internal segmentation, that is the first and the foremost of important characteristic features. And the head is distinct without the sensory organs. The setae few embedded in the skin, and the parapodia are absent. You can't see any extensions from this segments, so that the parapodia is absent. The pharynx is not irreversible, and without the jaws, they are the hermaphrodite and the sexes are separate. The development is direct, fertilization external with the no college. So the development is indirect and the fertilization is external and there is no larval stage. So this is a beautiful picture showing the digestive system. This is a cross-sectional view and this is a whole organism. It is a prostomium, that is an anterior projection of the first segment, the peristomium. And at the time of sexual maturity, the clitellum develops and the eggs are laid. Then this megascolloids is a good example for the earthworm. It is a family of large-sized earthworm which is found in New Zealand, Northern America and Australia. It is a common genus found in South India. It has a long cylindrical body, as you can see in this picture, and the length can reach up to the 4 to 9 inches. And the dorsal surface is dark while the ventral surface is pale in appearance. Here you can see the dorsal surface is dark and the ventral surface, it is the pale in appearance, and the body is made up of the several segments called as a metameres. The body is made up of the several layers called as a metameres. Metameres. The first segment of the body is called as a peristomium, and the tip of which it is a mouth opening, and the peristomium, it bears the thick fleshy lobe, the prostomium. However, the mouth and the anus is at the tip of the last segments, and the megascolloid segments are about 14 to 7 inches, which appears to be the thick and glandula called as a clitellum. So in megascolloids you can see the clitellum here. This is a clitellum region, 14 to 17 pairs in thick, and glandula called as a clitellum is present in this union of these segments. And the clitellum is more prominent in segmentation, faintly marked, especially during the breeding season. And there are the 3 types of spermatical opening for the spermatical openings of the ventral side. Between the segments it can be seen between the 6 and the 7, and 7 and 8, and the 8 and 9. And the dorsal pores are the openings situated dorsally to the median line. And this megascolloids represents a subclass of the animals in the phylum Annelida. The worms accidentally characterized by the setae, which are the hair-like structures on the surface of the body. And these megascolloids have the 8 or more than the 8 setae, and the worms lack the lateral fleshy protrusions called as a parapodia. And the worms included in the Oligoketa have a well-segmented body, and they have the most spacious coelom or the body cavity, which may use as a hydroskeleton. They proliferate in moist and the humus-rich soils, and they create the burrows that are of various sizes. And a few of the earthworms are found in the trees, and a few are found in the damp areas, and they are also found in the aquatic environment and having a small slender body. And the aquatic worms are usually have the transparent body walls. So this is a schematic representation of hydrostatic skeleton. Then in addition to the apertures and the opening, there are the large number of the small opening called as a nephridio pore which is present in the earthworm